Hey guys, good practice today.
Man, I'm hungry.
Me too. I know just the spot. Go long. No, way longer.
Everyone knows the best route for good times and great food takes you to Whiskey River in Ankeny. Lunch, late nights, or just catching up with friends? This is your spot.
About time you guys got here.
Well, you did have a head start.
In the heart of the district, Whiskey River.
A fuel choice that even rivals can agree on? Now that's worth the hype. Pump it up with Unleaded 88.
We recommend listening to the CW pod with a glass of Steeple Ridge Bourbon. Grown, distilled, well-rested, and bottled in Erling, Iowa. Now from the Channel Seed Studios, this is the CW pod, fueled by Steeple Ridge.
Hello, Tuesday, September the 10th, CW Pod here in Iowa, everywhere. Real quick, if you're going to be in Ankeny coming up this weekend, my guy Pat Hoffman, this will be on Sunday at the Market and Pavilion in Ankeny. They have a Corks and Caps event, and my friends from Steeple Ridge Bourbon will be there from 1 to 4 pouring their wonderful bourbons, rye, and the North 40 flavored vodkas. I've got the Black Label here with me today. This is my personal favorite. Drank a lot of this at that Channel Seed Blackhawk concert a few weeks ago. Pat was there. Shout out to those guys. How are you, Randy Peterson? Going to join me today talking some college football from his beach house in Okoboji. What's up, brother?
I'm good, dude. It's good to see you. Good to be with you. I mean, I talk to you almost every day. But yeah, it's good. It's overcast up here today.
How's the lake? Because they had the flooding deal, right?
Yeah,
no
exactly.
Wake for a while. Is everything normal up there?
Right, everything's normal now. Yeah, exactly. Good. Everything is normal, but it was about 2 months of everything was I don't want to say shut down, but it was no wake, and the docks were. I mean, there's multi-million-dollar houses up here that suffered multi-million-dollar landscaping problems because of all the water, because of it I don't know what's the word.
Softening of the ground and the erosion.
Yeah, the softening of the ground and erosion. They lost a lot of their property into the lake. And there's docks that were not replaced. I was fortunate that my damage where I live was just minimal. It was I don't know, $3,000 compared to people. And let's say, that's not even to mention Spencer. Spencer was underwater among the places up here underwater. So I was fortunate, but everything's back to normal now. I was down to Spencer the other day, just kind of tootling around the Clay County Fair. I've always heard of the Clay County Fair.
I heard that's amazing.
I'd never been. Yeah. They had at last Saturday night, I was driving back up from Jefferson, where I guess we'll talk about that later. But and I saw a lot of lights over by there, so I drove over by there. I didn't go in, but Kansas was performing, for example. And I don't mean Bill Self. So yeah, they have good concerts. It's I'm probably going to go back sometime this week just to hang out.
Cool. Well, we have a lot to talk about. I have a couple of college football topics that I wanted to hit you with. And then, of course, I don't know if we need to rehash the Cyhawk game too much, but talk about, some storylines coming out of that, specifically with Iowa State. And also wanted to get your opinion on Iowa. You were with Podolak. So what in the heck were you guys up to? They were playing you two Yahoos like throughout the whole Wild Rose Casino up there in Jefferson on Saturday. That sounds like a hell of a time. I wish I could have been there.
It was, but we didn't drink during the game. No,
that's boring.
No, we didn't drink during the game. And I only had maybe a couple before I drove back up here Saturday night. But Podolak reached out a month and a half ago whenever it was, saying that he's good friends with the owner of those casinos, Gary Kirk, and said that that Kirk wants to try having Podolak do a Manning cast type thing, with somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And so Podolak, for some reason, got a hold of me, and we did Cyhawk. So I drove down to, hour and a half, 2 hours, whatever, drove down to Jefferson, and we're sitting at a podium and in the bar / sports bar.
That's a nice sports bar.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you've
casino.
been there. Yeah.
It's really
nice. Yeah. So we're sitting in there. I mean, we both got our microphones. We're watching a 1 million-inch TV. That was great. And just during dead balls, which there were 1 million of them. You don't know how many timeouts there are until you have to talk during the timeouts. But we offered our comments, and Eddie was very, very complimentary towards Iowa State, and it wasn't just patronizing. I mean, Eddie was talking about plays that was going to happen and whether they were going to work or not before they actually were run. And then as the second half went on and on and on, I could see Eddie starting to get a little frustrated because he's still got a lot of hawk in him. I mean,
they featured him on the broadcast.
Twice.
Yeah.
Twice.
They pulled his picture up there.
Twice.
Yeah.
Trust me, I knew. Yeah, twice. And he was, and so he's got a lot still invested there. So, and as the game wore on, he could tell that this wasn't going to end pretty for the Hawks, and then he could win. He didn't understand the 2-minute warning or the 2-minute timeout or whatever those are. That is.
Well, that saved Iowa State.
He said that too.
Yeah.
He said that, boom, right there on the spot. He said it. I think he may have exactly used those words. He said, this saves Iowa State.
That was the game, really.
Yeah.
There's no chance for Iowa State without that 2
No,
minute
exactly.
drill.
Exactly. Yeah. And then when Kirk opted to go for 2 points, Eddie was questioning that, as a lot of people were, for example. So yeah, he was very realistic throughout the whole game, very complimentary towards Iowa State. He especially loved Bo Freeler and obviously all of Iowa State's passing offense. So, and I don't think I get the idea. I asked him about Cade McNamara. I said, if you're the coach, what do you do? And he said, you don't dump him. He said, you don't dump him right now. He said, you just let him go and see where it takes you. So I saw the depth chart this morning, the Iowa depth chart, and I saw that Kirk's not going to do it. Kirk wouldn't do that. Do that anyway.
I don't know if you were like me, but I mean, you're very knowledgeable about this Iowa State roster. And it's the reason I changed my pick to Iowa was because I was worried about stopping the run just with all the injuries at linebacker.
Yes. And I changed my pick too. Yeah.
Something went wrong. Please try again.
That's my phone. I'm sorry.
Oh, you're good. But I just didn't understand why Iowa went away from that as early as they did. Like on those goal lines, what do they have? First and goal twice and just got field goals out of both.
Yeah,
of them.
exactly.
God, I just felt like if they just would have been stubborn and ran the freaking football 3 times each time, they would have gotten in the end zone.
Give him the ball to what's his name? Caleb Johnson. Yeah.
2. Yep.
Giving the ball to him. I mean, my gosh, Iowa State could not stop him.
Yeah. You wrote in your column for Iowa Everywhere this week about John Haycock and Eli Rashid, and there's part of me too that's like, shouldn't have been surprised with the game plan that they had and the way that Haycock had those linebackers ready to go. But I thought it would take a while with the youth, and maybe that's knew what was coming type thing, right? With Iowa's scheme, and even though they have a new coordinator, it's like they're not doing that much differently in reality. But they look like they've got this Cale Brazina 9. Who was out there, the true freshman, his first game ever, and then this Cooper Ebel, who we all heard a lot about at the end of last year. They thought he was going to be pretty good. I don't want to jump the gun here, but they've got what appears to be, two more of these great John Haycock, Iowa State linebackers. That's been a pretty good lineage of guys that have come through there. And unfortunately, Bacon's not there with them because of his, what are they calling it, a lower leg injury.
Lower leg, yeah.
But really encouraging for Iowa State to see those two guys step up in that type of a situation, just as young as they are, right, in that type of an environment.
And that was huge. They were huge. I was concerned about going into the game what kind of a game Luke Lachey would have.
Absolutely.
I mean, because this would set up perfect for him, because Iowa does a lot of stuff with the tight ends in the middle of the field where the linebackers are. And Iowa, like you mentioned, Iowa didn't have Caleb Bacon. Iowa State didn't have Bacon. They didn't have Will McLaughlin.
Mm-hmm.
They've got just
Carson Willich is out already.
Carson Willich was out. Sadowski didn't even start in game one, and he ended up getting hurt too.
Mm-hmm. At one point in that game when Sadowski went out, it was 4 of their top 5 linebackers.
Yeah. So you've
man.
And I think I said to Podolak, I said, watch, this is going to go right to Lachey, right in the middle of the linebackers. And Iowa's defensive backs were so good at they out physicaled Iowa's receivers without question.
Oh,
it was very detectable, very easy.
Very evident that was the game plan.
Yeah.
Going in with Hank
Just knock the
Poteet
hell out
and
of them.
Those cornerbacks where you guys are going to play the most physical game that you possibly can with those young Iowa receivers. And I don't know if that's what personally I doubt. I think there's a lot more wrong with Iowa's offense than just receivers. This has been the case for a long time. But you could tell though, like purchase on that freshman, Vanderlee or whatever his name is, Vanderzee.
He's from up here. Yeah.
You could just tell that was the game plan from the first snap, was that even if he beats you, if you get a penalty, you are going to rough him up. And it's very evident when you go back and watch the tape slower.
And Iowa State, and they showed this on TV. I think it was, who was it that ran that complicated route where Wampa ended up getting beat? That was Jaden Higgins.
Noel.
Was it Noel? Okay.
The 75-yard pass?
No, there was another one. That where either Noel or Higgins.
Well, you said when Wampa got beat, and that was the 75-yard one.
Was that the 75 party? Okay,
but he got beat a couple times. Was
that one then. I mean, it was a complicated route, and they showed that on TV. They showed that route. They diagrammed it on TV a couple times, and Podolak said it. He saw it right away. I mean, he said that it was whoever it was, Higgins or Noel, they kind of slanted in, then slanted out, then slanted back in again. Podolak said that's an NFL route. That is 100% NFL route, and he did it. Whoever did it perfect. I think it was Noel did it perfectly, and Wampa didn't have any clue what was going on there. It didn't have any clue. And no offense to Wampa, but they hadn't seen that. Iowa hadn't seen that on film because they didn't use it.
Mm-hmm.
Iowa State did not use it in the first game, so they'd not seen that. And credit to the coaching staff in key situations. Iowa State's coaching staff rose to the occasion more so than Iowa's coaching staff in key situations. I'm not saying for first two and a half quarters it was all Iowa essentially, but
yeah. And the other thing, I made this note, and you're one of the few people who I can have this conversation with because you'll remember all of it. The Iowa offensive game plan, and we haven't seen this enough, so it's not a perfect comparison. But do you remember when Courtney Messingham was the offensive coordinator at Iowa State, and they always scored in the first possession?
Yeah.
When they had it real nice and scripted, and they did such a good job of preparing before the game for what they were going to see during the end of the roads era.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden, like it got worse and worse as the game went on. And that was what I saw from Iowa, where I thought the more adjustments that Iowa State made, the Hawkeye coaching staff just wasn't matching them up as far as that goes on the offensive side.
No, you're right. And yeah, you're right. Because Iowa State ran they were pretty. It shows how vanilla Iowa State was in the first game. That's what that's among the things that shows. But in against Iowa, I mean, they were pulling out some complicated stuff, and I saw that some people are amazed at the catches that Jalen and that the J guys, the J guys can make. We saw that last year. Dude, we saw that last year also. I mean, these guys are good. You get the ball in their area, like in the first game. Noah making that Beck throwing into double coverage and making that catch with the ball pinned to the defensive guy's back and grabbing it up around. That's a big time catch too. My golly, big time throw and big time catch. So you made a point earlier where you said, let's not get too far ahead of yourself. But there's every reason in the world that Iowa State fans can get out in front of their skis a little bit on this, because knock on wood, this schedule sets up pretty good.
Well,
they
should be 5-0 going into West Virginia at the very least.
Yes, exactly. And at West Virginia, who knows how that game goes. I'll never be sold on a Neil Brown team, on a Neil Brown coach anyway, after that crap that he pulled last year at the.
That's how I used to be with those Holgerson teams too.
God,
I was like,
oh my God, yes.
Holgerson's a coach, then who knows?
Remember that crap last year? He said everybody picked against us. He says I didn't pick against us, and he was right. But,
all right,
please.
That's a good lead in.
Oh, here we go. I know where we're going.
I want to go to Gundy.
I love Gundy
because so this is a guy who. Like even this year, just in July, he made the comments like he basically, I mean, what it came off as was saying, yeah, I drive drunk all the time. I mean, it's kind of what it came off like, Coach. All right, this is the guy who
he's your uncle out there. I mean, everybody's uncle out there doing that.
He kind of became famous with the "I'm a man, I'm 40" back, which was 17 years ago. Crazy enough, I believe it was 17 years.
Yeah, it was. I looked it up today.
Okay. And Gundy has been very refreshing in the last 5 years or so with the realignment stuff, with their arch rival Oklahoma leaving, and now he's been very much this way with name, image, and likeness payments to the players, where the point he was making, and he made it horribly, I might add, in Vegas earlier this year about the drunk driving with, or not driving under the influence. I don't know how drunk he was, whatever.
Yeah.
Semantics. He got an OWI, Ollie Gordon did. Star running back for Oklahoma State. Gundy makes this ridiculous comment, but the point he was making, like the broader point he was making before he fumbled it, was that these guys are pretty much employees now. They're pretty much pro athletes. Like, we're paying them. We'll discipline them how we see it. Or like in the NFL, if you get an OWI, there's a collective bargaining, like where there's a max, like there's a minimum suspension that the teams have to do. It's all agreed upon before. Well, in college athletics, it's the freaking Wild West. Anybody can do whatever they want. So I thought there was a really interesting comment made. Oklahoma State loses its best linebacker to injury. And he was asked about it as far as a financial, like, how does this hit Oklahoma State football behind the scenes? And this is what he said in his press conference yesterday.
About him and just what you like about what you saw from McGann and stuff.
Do you want me to go back into coach talk, or do you want me to tell you the truth?
The truth.
The truth?
Yes.
He was very inexpensive. The number of players that we go after that were ready to play at this level, we can't afford. So he was a good buy and a really quality young man that had success and has physical characteristics that we can work with Rob Glass and develop him. And so that's why he ended up here, in my opinion.
So now you have Gundy just referring to players as a good buy Just doing all the no-nos. And the other thing is like, so the coaches technically are not supposed to be involved with the NIL.
Technically.
Right? Like they're not supposed to have any say over how much these players are getting paid. That's supposed to all be going through the collectives. But again, Gundy rewards us with real talk as opposed to just blowing smoke up our asses like 99% of these coaches do. And frankly, I don't blame them a lot of the times. Like I've talked about this before. We don't do, if I was a coach and not necessarily you and me, but there's a lot of poor media decisions out there that will take things out of context and then we'll put them on Twitter and right. Like that. If I were a coach, I would be pretty selective with what I say as well. But Gundy continues to just tell it how it is. And while he's been criticized for that, I loved it. It was one of my favorite things that I've seen from a college coach in years, that comment yesterday.
So I communicated with Jenny Carlson a couple back and forth today for about a half hour this morning. The reporter that asked the question, and Jenny, by the way, was the brunt of Gundy's tirade in 2007 as well. But anyway,
I didn't know that was Jenny. Interesting.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was. Yeah. But anyway, so I asked Jenny about it. I said, what was your reaction when you asked a very tame question, about the behind the scenes of recruiting this guy, his name I can't say, behind the scenes of recruiting this kid from a Division III university. And Jenny said, I've been around essentially every Gundy press conference for years and years. That is the most from the heart that she's ever heard Gundy speak. I mean, that whole dissertation from Gundy was incredible. He said the stuff that I guarantee you we'll never hear in this state.
Could you imagine Campbell? No. Caleb Bacon's a very affordable. Yeah, sucks,
exactly.
But we didn't spend that much on him. The cap space is still good.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we might have heard it from Hayden. I don't know, but we'll never hear that in this state, which is fine. That's nothing against any of our coaches, and I'm not certain you'd hear it very much anywhere in the country. But for Gundy to go off like that and speak from the heart, that's exactly what he feels like. He's making his point. And let's not forget now that 2 weeks ago, Gundy had this great idea to put that QR code on the back of the helmets.
Mm-hmm.
And hours before their first game, the NCAA said, this isn't going to work. And let's not forget, this is the same NCAA that this summer in June said that colleges could use corporate logos on the field and get big money for that to put in a war chest for when they start having revenue sharing. I mean, so I get where Gundy's coming from in all of this stuff. And I get it also that the money in Oklahoma is bulk of the money goes to the University of OU, goes to Oklahoma University. I get that. So Gundy's just digging getting these shots in whenever he can. We need more Mike Gundys. We need more rest in peace Mike Leaches. I mean, my guys. Mm-hmm. And that I know Leaches is one of your guy. I mean,
he's my hero, man. Like that guy. Like
where were we? We were at a press conference together with him. In some town. I don't know where it was.
Well, a lot of them.
No, but you and I were.
Was that San Antonio?
San Antonio. Yeah.
San Antonio. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Quarterback whisperer. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. But we need more. We need more.
And he's
more
so
Gundys.
Authentic too. I went up and talked to him after his press conference, and he was awesome. Like it wasn't like, oh, Leach is off the stage. He remembered because he was on with me and Ross a couple of days before that, and he went off on some deal about weddings and giving advice to people, and like it was one of those classic Leach sound clips. I thought Gundy was being a little strategic there too, to kind of open up the window to his fan base as well.
Oh yeah.
Like, you want to get that guy? We can't afford that guy, but we can get the D3 guy.
Yeah. I don't think there's any question about that. Exactly. And once again, he's doing what he said, what every coach in a major college coach in America thinks, but either is not afraid to say or won't say. And maybe not afraid to say is maybe that's not the right phrase, but at least won't say. And
Gundy he's very comfortable in his own skin. You know, if it's in the middle of 2020 and the race riots and he's wearing an OAN t-shirt.
I was just going to say that.
You know, like right or wrong, you can hate his opinions. You can hate the stuff he says. Like my point is though, that he doesn't care. And I wish we had more of that. Like McCarney didn't care back in the day.
Right.
But he also didn't have to deal with Twitter and, you know, TikTok and all this crap. It was fascinating to me, and it brought me back to, I did a show about a month ago, and this was a monologue, and we hadn't announced that you were coming on board yet, and you're a perfect person to talk to about this. Because what I don't think that a lot of these football programs and athletic departments are prepared for in all this. And I know they're preparing for the financial and there's legal stuff, and that's what they're thinking about right now. I would caution them all to be ready to answer questions about the money. And the reason I say that is what's going to happen now that there's this $22 million cap or whatever. If the reporters are doing their jobs, and they're, believe it or not, there's still really good ones out there. Don't you think, Randy, the story goes from being, is Caleb Bacon going to play, and that's still a big thing, to of the $22 million, how much are you spending on football compared to women's basketball? And then, okay, how much are you paying your quarterback? And you're better with this, with like the public record stuff. Is that going to be chronicled? Because I will tell you this, the one thing I know is how fans think. And the immediate way this is going to go when the team isn't performing is it's all of a sudden now, like I'm a Braves fan, right? Like that's one of my great passions. I'm a Vikings fan, and I want to kill the general manager when my team, right? What did you make that decision for? What are you paying Kirk Cousins for? I think that that's a way that college sports is going to zig pretty quickly. And it's going to be a deal where, hey, I need Tyler Barnes and Derek Hoodger on the stand to answer questions about the personnel decisions they are making with these rosters. I need Jamie Pollard or whoever is in charge, Beth Getz, whoever is in charge of dispersing the money. I need the collective leader on the stand because that's what fans and your boosters are going to want to know. And it's such a secretive world in college athletics. I don't know if they're going to be able to do that in this new era. Have you thought about that? Or
yeah.
Am I too far down the road here?
No, I have thought about that. And at the end of every fiscal year, the universities, including the athletic departments, have to submit a report. And we're going to see that. That will be in there somewhere. Somewhere that will be a line item. I don't know what it will be called, but we will.
Will we be able to see individual?
I don't know.
The linemen are getting that, or will it be football got this?
There's a website out there that's got that, but I don't know how accurate it is, and I can't remember the name. Bloom would know the website. What
I fear for an Iowa State more so than an Iowa, but it'll happen at Iowa too. But if you're not maxing out your $22 million, is going to be a major problem for the vocal aspect of the fan base. Could also see this. So a lot of these SEC schools, we are being told, are going to put like 80% of the money into football. They're punting on basketball. Women's basketball, I'm sorry, and they may have other collectives doing these other things. Like, I don't know how that's all going to work out. But like, just the criticism of an Iowa State fan or an Oklahoma State fan that maybe your university can't get to the $22 million, and I don't know how that's all going to work, whatever. You also know we can educate them as much as possible. They're still not going to understand why they're not doing exactly what the University of Iowa is doing, or what, right? Or an Oklahoma State fan pissed that they're not paying their quarterback as much as Oklahoma is. And I can just see this being a real headache if they're not ready for this from a public relations standpoint in the future.
Well, I don't disagree with that at all. And let's say you're a fan. Let's say you've got $500,000 of discretional money, and you want to give it to an athletic department. 15 years ago, you'd have given it to an athletic department where it could build, help build new buildings on sports related buildings. Do you do that now? I mean, what do you do? If you still,
or do you say, "Hey, I'm a basketball fan. I want this to go strictly to basketball."
Yeah, exactly. Or wrestling,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, it's crazy. And yeah, you're right. Everybody wonders how much these athletes are making. Everybody wonders that. You read all this stuff. Excuse me, but you're smart enough, and I'm smart enough not to believe what we're reading. But you really wonder how much money is actually being thrown around out there. And this is, if I'm sounding like a homer here, so be it. But you also wonder how Iowa State can keep up with that. Because as well as I do, Brock Purdy was offered mega bucks elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
As well as I do that Dom Orange or
Dom Orange could be anywhere. Right?
Dom was offered huge. I mean, Campbell told me this off to the side towards the end of last season that a lot of his guys are being offered money. And so,
absolutely. They've gone on the record with that.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, the Rocco Beck numbers that got tossed around that we've all heard very publicly, north of $1 million,
right,
to go to SEC schools.
How long can Iowa State continue to play in that league?
The one thing that makes me feel okay about it, though, is just that I still think that players are going to want to play, and there's part of me that thinks it's going to just be hard. I hope that now the way the thing is setting up, I hope the transfer portal doesn't change. And that sounds crazy, but I don't necessarily want an SEC school to be able to just stockpile 105 spots for 5 years just because they can pay more. If the third string quarterback that would start anywhere in the Big 12 wants to transfer, I think he needs to be able to transfer.
I read somewhere recently that the college programs in the Power Four, the programs that are essentially using their own players, where the rosters are mostly comprised of players they recruited, they're the ones doing better. I mean, obviously the shining example of that on the opposite side of what I just said is Colorado. I mean, what they have? 52 portal guys. I mean,
just a disaster.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, there's still something to be said for guys coming to a university. It drives George Niang crazy. I've talked to George many times about this. Guys not being at someplace 4 years. It just drives him bonkers for that, because he was in a time during that. I mean, you had George Monte, these guys, Matt Naz, Monte, those guys. Those guys were, I don't want to say lifers, but they were at Iowa State from the bottom up. They were in the program from the bottom up. You don't see that today. You see the instant gratification. And how can a school like Iowa State keep those guys? I don't know. And they talk about culture, and yeah, there's money being thrown around at Iowa State as well. Let's not be naive. But it's not the type of money that some of the teams against whom they're playing. And I'm not even saying Iowa's in that situation, dude. I'm not saying Iowa's in that boat either. But yeah, it's crazy out there.
The final thought for me on the Gundy piece is, we live in this world of like these programs are just they're so secretive now, right? Especially compared to back in the day where you could go to practice. I mean, even at the beginning of my career, we could go watch McCarney's teams practice, and you had real insight on these teams. And now everything is so shielded, and I mean the coaches will blatantly just lie to you about injuries and whatever. The rules dictate it that they can do that. Now that might change with
Don't get me going on that one either. Yeah.
With gambling and all that.
Yeah.
I guess my greater point, and after listening to Gundy, I thought it accentuated this a little bit more, is I think in the new setup, I think the curtain is going to have to be lifted a little bit. And these guys are going to have to open up a little bit. And I don't necessarily think it's all on the head coach. I think whoever is in the GM role, specifically in football, is going to need to be held accountable to the fan base. I think the fan bases are going to demand that we do that. Do you agree?
100%. And once the schools start paying players, do you agree that the schools will start paying players?
Absolutely.
Eventually?
Yeah, 2025, it's going to start. Absolutely.
Boom. Then the student athletes, why do I say that? Then the athletes become public employees, right?
Yeah, I mean, they're going to find a way to massage it.
If you're
they're
public
not going to
employee,
be
you
called
get IPers.
that, but
you
they
get
are.
IPers, right? And if you're a public employee, if you're getting paid by, let's just say Iowa State or Iowa, whomever, do you have to pay for your own scholarship too? Or do you, or
that all is,
and what about your insurance? We're going to find this out. I guarantee you, once they start paying players,
they're going to
like you said, the curtain will be raised.
Yeah. And it's going to be a fight because they're not going to want to raise it.
No, exactly.
It's going to be a dogfight to get these guys. And then, if they blatantly lie to you about it and then we catch them and, I'm giving them grace because they haven't done anything wrong yet. I'm telling you, they're so worried about the money, and I understand why they are. This is the lifeblood of everything. I get it. Nobody's doing anything wrong. I don't think they're prepared for the backlash of the fan base now that they know there's this salary cap and how are we spending our money? Are we smart with it? Is it, oh, I'm a Braves fan. We're not investing enough in our pitching rotation. We need to put more into the bullpen. That's going to be the stuff that we're writing about in the offseason. Iowa State, what would have been the topic the last few years? Man, they need to put more money into their offensive line.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's going to change everything. And I just don't think that these coaches are prepared for that.
Coaches and administrators.
No.
Yeah, you're exactly.
And I can't blame them. Everything is being shifted on top of them. But I'm telling you, is if I were still on the daily beat, that's what I would be asking about starting next year. How much are you spending on your roster? How is it allocated? Why did you decide to allocate it that way? What are you thinking through when you do, right? And I think those are all very fair when it's this new level. And I would hope writers across the country are doing
and then if you're women's basketball, like you alluded to earlier, women's basketball, wrestling, I don't care. Soccer, you've got the Title IX stuff
and that's this whole other
follow
deal
as well. Exactly. But it's
I don't
out
think
there.
they're going to follow it. I don't think that they care.
Then you're going to break it. Then they're going to have to break away from something and drop sports.
I think they're going to view it for the most part as long as we're giving the opportunities, that fulfills our Title IX, and it doesn't have anything to do with the money. And somebody will challenge that in court.
Define opportunity.
There'll be a lot of people who will challenge that in court, and we'll see how it works out. But you think that LSU and Georgia are going to split the $22 million equally with women's sports? Hell no. 20 of that's going to football, and they'll sprinkle $2 million else somewhere else. Guaranteed.
No, exactly. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how what shakes out going forward. And dude, you don't think TJ's going to want a piece of this pie also?
Well,
I mean, for example, you don't think Bill Self is going to want a piece of this pie?
Further complicates things when you have a fan base that cares equally about basketball. Or
how about Kelvin Sampson? Oh, yeah.
Well, and then there's you have your Creightons and Villanovas that don't have football to pay.
Exactly. Yeah. You've got those guys, the coaches of those sports, then getting in Gonzaga, getting the majority of that money going to basketball.
Craig McDermott has a top 5 job in the country right now.
Without question, he does.
Playing a professional arena, no football, downtown, rich people come to your games all the time. It's like an NBA team.
And I don't know whether he saw that however many years ago, but
they were in the Valley.
I know exactly. It certainly worked out all right for him.
They were playing in the Knapp Center at that time.
Exactly. God love McDermott. Yes, exactly. But I mean, that's a great point. If you at a school that doesn't have football, gee whiz. Yeah.
Yeah. So last one I have for you is Deion Sanders, and you've written about him since he started at Iowa Everywhere. I guess I'm not surprised with how they've started this year. He's tried to, as an outsider looking in, he's tried to build this program from the outside in. Really little attention being paid to the lines on both sides of the football. And I thought a little bit when he lashed out so much this offseason, it reminds me a little bit of what Baylor's done. Baylor, and they haven't lashed out like this, but the whole, like, it felt very desperate to where we pay player shirts and, like, what are you trying to prove? Like, what? It just felt really weird to me to be doing that in 2024, although I think Aranda's a pretty good coach. I don't know if Deion is. We'll continue to find out as he continues his career as a head coach. But when he went after our old friend Sean Keeler the way that he did, more specifically when he banned that local CBS reporter because national CBS did a bad story on his son, was just really just so overly sensitive. And he's in Boulder. Like, this isn't some crazy market where the media is, this isn't like the New York media market we're talking about. Denver, but let's face it, before Deion got there, Colorado football is nothing. The Denver Post isn't sending their columnist to Boulder every Monday, right? This is not happening. But when he lashed out the way that he did and was just so overly sensitive, it made me really question, man, does he know? Does he know something that they're not going to be very good? I don't know. What do you think of Deion's behavior? And then where does this go from here?
It starts. My whole thing with that starts with the school. They were so desperate to get butts in those seats that they allowed Deion to have a clause in his contract that said he only had to talk to reporters that he wanted to talk to. I mean, unfreaking believable. I talked to athletic directors, some of whom you and I know who don't work in this state.
Mm-hmm.
And ask, my God, would you ever do this? Heck no. I mean, that's unbelievable. But be that as it may, he's done what he was hired. He's done what he was hired to do. He's filled the stadium. He's brought energy to Colorado football. And now the next step is, will they ever win? Will they win under Deion with this formula that he has? And I don't know whether they will or not. He had three for sure of the best players in college football, maybe the top two players in college football on his roster, and his son, and what's the two-way guy's name?
Travis.
Yeah. And my gosh. Yeah, okay, you've got those players as your star players. You're filling the stadium. You own the town. You own Boulder. I don't think the winning's going to come along with it. I really don't. I don't see
either.
It. At least with this formula. I mean, he's got new guys coming in every year. He's changing his coaching staff around every year, and I get that. First year coaches do that. I get that. But the whole roster turnover.
You can't treat linemen like wide receivers.
Yeah, exactly.
Like a wide receiver can come in from JUCO and be a star. It's pretty rare that a offensive guard does.
And let's not forget, and this is going to really sound athletic administrative-ish, but isn't there a clause in there somewhere where athletes have to show some sort of academic progress? And how in the hell are you showing academic progress when you're transferring every year?
Again, how does that play into this new world?
Exactly. Yeah.
All right. Well, can we demand to see the quarterback's grades?
Exactly.
I don't think so, but it doesn't.
Probably
I don't-
not.
That's
But
why
anyway,
they
get
got to
back
be
to
like
Colorado.
these.
He's all. I mean, at some point, the people in Boulder, the Colorado fans, unless they start winning, they're going to realize that he's all bluster. And
If they haven't by now,
oh, exactly, yeah.
then they are just the run of the mill douche fan that like can never criticize their own team.
I want to see. I want to see. I shouldn't even mention this, but what the heck I am. I just
do
read
whatever you want, Peterson.
Just before we went on, we went on here, I was reading a story that Deion has told the Colorado band. Have you seen this? That they can't play
most obscene thing
that they
ever.
can't play a freaking school song after Shadur or whatever his name is scores a touchdown. They have to play his son's rap music. How about that? Is that in that contract too? And where's it? Who's the adult in the room there in the administrative room there? Oh my gosh. It's
did you
crazy.
feel when the sports information department put out that statement about Keeler?
Yeah.
I was very conflicted. I didn't know if I felt bad for the sports information director because they're really powerless at this point.
Right.
Or if I was irate with the sports information department there that they would go through with that and put out that ridiculous statement. Right? You see what I'm saying? Because it's like the old school SID would be like, screw you. Like, that's not because they were like a friend of the media. But now, like, I could see in a situation in Boulder where this guy's so powerful. You know, he's dictating that the band can't play a song after a fight song. Like, who the hell am I? I can't stand up to him. I had to pay my bills. I was very conflicted when that came out. It's just such a different
I agree.
world.
And I don't know whether you're old enough. You're old, but I don't know whether you're old enough to know the one of the former longtime Colorado SID, Dave Platty.
I remember getting emails from Dave. Yes.
Platty
Don't
was
know
there.
him, but I remember the emails.
He's an
from
awesome
back in the
guy.
Big
Been there.
12
He was
days.
there 100 years. He wouldn't have put up with it. I guarantee you, Platty would not have put up with this whatsoever.
Well, and now
I saw Platty once, and you can ask Tom Crochelle to verify this. Iowa State played at Colorado, and Platty threw out an assistant athletic director because this dude was cheering, an associate athletic director, because this dude was cheering in the press box. Platty just pitched him. Platty 100% pitched him. You're out. Bye.
Man,
That was
that's
awesome.
incredible. That's a great story. But yeah, like I guarantee, like whoever this SID is, I don't know. Like, what are you
I don't
gonna
know
do?
who it
Tell
is now.
Deion Sanders? No, like it's in his
Yeah.
contract. Your boss, the athletic director, agreed to this. That he
I
can
don't
just
know,
kick
yeah.
people out whenever
That's
he
how
wants. Like
desperate they were.
it's like Baghdad Bob. Like, no, we are not being bombed right now. We can see the bombs going off in the background. Like, it was insane. It was one of the craziest stories I've seen. And the fact that it was Keeler.
Yeah. And good for Keeler. He's not backed off. He was in.
His column after that was iconic.
He was in Lincoln. Oh yeah, he was in Lincoln over the weekend. Yeah, so he'll be right there. And man, I can't wait to watch this weekend's game and to see the outcome of this weekend's game at Colorado State. Hello.
I feel like I'm gonna step in it because I don't know how Colorado's favored by 7.5 on the road against anybody. Especially in a rivalry game like that, you're going into Fort Collins. Shadir's out. You know, one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the country is not even playing. Like I'm with you. Like that's one of the most interesting games of the weekend to me because I think Colorado's going to lose. But again, it seems so obvious to me that I'm wondering if I'm going to step in it because of that.
I don't know. We all stepped in it last week, the Iowa State game,
and we knew it because when I looked at that game before a kickoff, 90% of the betting public was betting on Iowa. It was like,
I know.
Iowa State's winning this. Like, this is stupid.
That's what I asked the person who one of the people at the sports book in Jefferson. I said, "How's the betting going on this?" And I was told that just what you said. The heavy betting right now is with Iowa.
Mm-hmm.
This was moments before kickoff.
It was all on Iowa and the under, and Iowa State and the over hit.
Yes, yeah, and the over under it landed right on it, didn't it?
Mm-hmm.
That's
mm-hmm.
what I.
Just like 2 over, I think it depends on where you got that because that line sunk like a rock to like 33.5 at one point, and then it shot back up.
What was it?
after
What
that.
ended up
37, I think 36, 37, something
Yeah.
like that. Well, Pete, this was fun. We're gonna do this a lot. So glad to have you on our team, and you're huge asset. And man, I heard a lot of people that were really happy to be able to read your thoughts on the game on
Appreciate
Saturday
that.
night or on Sunday night. So
yeah, I don't like it when people say Iowa lost the game and don't give that's not giving credit to the opponent. So that annoys me.
Yeah, I've learned over the years, and I'm obviously biased, but whenever Iowa State wins that game, it's always because Iowa fucked it up. Nobody.
Yeah, you're right. I agree.
It's just how it goes. You can say an F-bomb on this, by the way. Not that I'm not like
I wanted
Yeah.
to ease in gradually.
Ease into that. Oh,
Yeah.
Keith Murphy's having a hell of a time whenever somebody cusses on their show.
Yeah,
He's like,
didn't Sipker drop the F-bomb?
yeah. I try not to. We try not to celebrate it, but if you need to, you need to. Like that's.
What about your daughters? Do your daughters watch this and they say,
yeah.
Dad, you can't say that?
They do, but my daughters also know. They know that in some moments, Dad's going to say a bad word, and that doesn't mean I should go to my.
Just use it in
grade.
context.
Yes.
Just use it in the right context.
As long as you say with all due respect before.
Boom.
No, but you're right. I know kids are listening, and we apologize, but we didn't just do 20 minutes on the future of media relations in college football for your 9-year-old. I'm sorry. Maybe listen. It is what it is. When Sipker's on, put the earmuffs on. We'll put it that way. Pete, and go enjoy the lake. Where are we going today? You getting some pizza after this? Gonna go have a few Diet Cokes? What are we doing?
I'll probably go have a couple beers at one of my places. I don't know which one, and then just come back and settle in and watch the quote unquote debate.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that tonight. That'll be.
How do you forget about that?
I'm sure everybody's gonna be real rational this evening at about 10 o'clock on Twitter.
God, see, there you go. And you live for that. You live for that stuff.
Not anymore. I have learned. Chris 5 years ago would mix it up on those.
Oh,
things,
exactly.
I just I try and keep my opinions to myself because I know I'm not going to change your mind and you're probably not going to change mine. So it's like I've just learned to try and keep my mouth shut.
And is it really a debate? I mean, you've got the microphone shut off.
Yeah.
Whoever's not talking, shut off. You need the back and forth. You need the banter. You need the
we need more.
You need the car wreck.
We need like the Mike Gundy press conference.
Boom.
Debate style.
Exactly. So what all this is just a hour-long televised press conference, essentially.
This is soft.
Yeah.
Soft.
I mean, at least I think that's the way it's going to go, but I don't know. We'll see.
He is Randy Peterson. Appreciate him joining me. Thanks to our friends at Steeple Ridge Bourbon, of course, Channel Seed as well. Go pick her up. Bye weekend for Iowa State. It should be like a bye weekend for Hawkeye fans out there. You got Troy coming to town, for God's sake. Go buy yourself a bottle of whiskey to enjoy it, or you're going to need it to watch that Iowa offense. Hopefully they can turn it around for you guys. He's Randy Peterson. I'm Chris Williams. We'll be back next week here on CW Pod. Aiden Wyatt producing here today on Iowa Everywhere.